Is the RTX 5070 Ti graphics card enough for the latest high demanding games in 2025? See, most people are claiming that this graphics card is a 1440p GPU, but it's not capable of running the latest, most high demanding games in 2025. So let's put this expensive graphics card to the test to see whether or not buying a 4K monitor is actually worth it when you buy this Nvidia GPU. And by the way, considering that the 5070 Ti is out of stock everywhere and scalpers are charging a crazy price for it, I do recommend you buying a Prebuilt gaming PC if you want to get this 5070 Ti. So I will leave the best gaming PCs with the 5070 Ti down below in the video description with the latest pricing and availability in your region. My name is Valentino. That being said, let's start. Let's start with one of the most high demanding titles out there in Flight Simulator 2024. Right now I am testing it in the high-end setting without DLSS on or frame generation, and it's running at about 57 FPS on average, and I have to say this is very playable for Flight Simulator. Now some people think that you need a bunch of frames in order for a game to be playable, but honestly Flight Simulator is even playable at 30 or 40 FPS. So 57 FPS on average, I felt it pretty smooth, and of course it looks amazing. We are in Mount Everest, but what I'm going to do now is turn on DLSS quality because I was using the LAA, which is more demanding of course, and while testing it in DLSS quality I was getting higher frame rates. As you can see in the top left corner, I was averaging around 90 FPS. I forgot to reset the FPS average benchmark, but yeah, about 90 FPS on average. With DLSS it looks amazing as well. Honestly, I can't tell the difference between DLSS quality and native resolution. So if you want a higher FPS experience, you can turn on DLSS quality, and if you want even higher FPS and take advantage of a 120Hz monitor or a 140Hz one, then by turning on frame generation and DLSS quality you will be averaging over 120 FPS, which is a very high number in this type of game. Now frame generation works amazingly well in this game. Honestly, it looks amazing, and when I'm playing this game with frame generation I don't notice anything weird with the quality, which is perfect. I was having trouble controlling the plane, honestly. I'm pretty bad at this game. I always crash the plane for some reason. But yeah, as you can tell, I'm not a pilot. Now let's go with the new Indiana Jones game. This is a very nice looking game, very demanding honestly. Right now I am testing ultra settings, 4K, no ray tracing or DLSS, and we are averaging around 80 FPS, which again, if you ask me, is a very playable experience. I would say you can easily play like this and have a very smooth experience, but it's really up to you whether you consider 80 FPS a good experience or not so much. In my opinion, it's amazing, and the quality is also awesome. I have to say this game already has some ray tracing enabled by default, and I believe that's why the reflections look so amazing. Now, if you decide to turn on DLSS quality, you get basically the same exact image quality. Again, I cannot tell the difference, and you are going to be averaging over 100 FPS. So if you want a higher FPS experience in this game, DLSS quality is the way to go. Of course, you can turn on frame generation if you want even higher frames and take advantage of a 144Hz monitor, but I just don't think that it's necessary, and if you want to prioritize quality, I think that DLSS quality is going to be your best option. While testing Cyberpunk 2077, another one of the most high demanding games out there, at 4K ultra settings with DLSS quality, I was averaging about 100 FPS, which is actually very nice in terms of smoothness. 100 FPS in this type of game is pretty good, and it looks amazing. I mean, Cyberpunk 2077 always looks amazing. And if you don't want to play with DLSS enabled or frame generation, well, in that case, if you want to play on ultra settings at 4K, you can expect 60 plus FPS on average. So it's very playable even if you play on ultra settings without any upscaling enabled. If you want to turn on ray tracing, in that case I do recommend you turning on DLSS performance. Now this generation is much more improved when it comes to performance mode. With previous RTX graphics cards, usually DLSS quality was the most playable, was my recommendation, but right now honestly DLSS performance looks amazing as well. And if you want to turn on ray tracing and have that extra nice lighting from the RT reflections, then trust me, turn on DLSS performance and you will be having a very smooth level of gaming performance at about 80 FPS on average. So again, very playable, and here you have ray tracing enabled. Now let's test Spiderman 2. This is one of the most recent games. This is a very poorly optimized game, by the way. Usually Spiderman games run much better than this, and I am testing this game on ultra settings and I am hitting over 60 FPS on average, which is again very playable. But usually in this type of games with a 5070 Ti you should be able to average well over 100 FPS on ultra settings, but maybe it's going to get better with time with future updates. And if you want to turn on ray tracing, I recommend you turning on the DLSS quality to be averaging over 60 FPS and you have that ray tracing look. Honestly, the graphics are pretty good, but to be fair, since this game is not well optimized, it's not the best when it comes to performance, but still you can easily play at 4K resolution with the 5070 Ti in this one. Honestly, I don't know why I don't play Spider-Man at all, because New York City is my favorite city in the world, but yeah, this is my first time playing. And last but not least, this is a bonus game. It's not the most high demanding anymore, but this one is one of the best looking games in my opinion in Red Dead Redemption 2. I am testing it in optimized settings. It's basically everything set to ultra except for some specific settings, and yeah, I am averaging close to 100 FPS, and as I said before, this is one of the best looking games out there. Looks amazing, and this is without DLSS enabled. If you want even higher frame rates, I do recommend you turning on DLSS, but honestly you don't need it because you're already averaging close to 100 FPS. But just to show you, in case you want to turn on DLSS quality, you will be averaging around 115 FPS, which is very playable, and honestly the quality is top tier. In my opinion, at least in this game, DLSS quality looks better than native, but it's of course subjective. Maybe for you native is better, you have to test it out. And here you have a graph of every game tested today on high to ultra settings. Even though most of these games were tested on ultra settings instead of high, you can pause the video if you want to see the exact numbers. So in conclusion, yes, the 5070 Ti is actually a pretty good graphics card for 4K resolution gaming. Now, if you want to turn on ray tracing, you will need to use DLSS, but that's also the case for the RTX 5080. That's just because ray tracing is a very high demanding technology. But if you want to play at 4K high to ultra settings, or if you're okay with turning on DLSS or frame generation when playing with ray tracing on, the 5070 Ti is actually a pretty good product for 4K resolution, as expected for a $750 graphics card if you are lucky. So I mean, if you can get it for $750, which is the MSRP, I do think that this GPU might be worth it if you have a 4K monitor, and it's actually much better value than the RTX 5080 at its MSRP of $1,000. However, as of right now, you can't get the 5070 Ti in stock, or at its MSRP should I say. The only 5070 Ti's that you will find are from scalpers going for a very high price. So if you want to get the 5070 Ti in stock, I recommend you buying a pre-built PC, and I have an entire video talking about the best pre-built PCs with the RTX 5070 Ti. But of course, if you don't want to see that video, don't worry about it. You will find the best pre-built PCs mentioned down below in the video description. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one.